Elinor, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here from the other side of the world.
The other side of the world, and for me, the other side of the microphone. So it's great to be here, and I look forward to our conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. I always like to start at the beginning. I'm always interested to hear the story about, what brought people to where they are today. So maybe share a little bit about your background. I know you had the corporate background, but, what brought you to this point and ultimately wanting to coach and serve people in the way that you do today?
Of course, thank you. There were many parts that were running in parallel that got me to where I am today. And in no particular order, one was my vision. I found myself working in an environment which was diminishing and not fulfilling. And it was not a day that I would go by where I would not stare at the clock and wait for 5 o'clock and want to be there. And it just didn't make sense that this is what a career in construction is constructed of, to be so unfulfilled and to not want to be there. And when I started conceiving my vision, I realized that I was completely in the wrong vehicle, that I thought that the dream was to become a project manager by 30. And sure, it may be for some, but it was devoid of meaning. And I could no longer project out inadequate days and days surrounded by mediocre minds for the next 40 years of my career. And I thought that, you know what, I'll just stay in my lane and do what everyone says. And every time I tried to suppress that vision, it came back with such a roaring flame back at me. Not that I knew how exactly it would manifest into a business or a concept. In parallel, I also found myself mentoring and tutoring people who were in construction. It was on technical assignments in the first place. I don't think I'd be able to complete another precast assignment for anyone at the moment. It would really be testing my knowledge at this point. But the conversations with me always turned to, you have such a successful career. That's what it looked like on the outside, not so much on the inside. How do I do it? And I thought, well, if I have this question, and if you have this question, there has to be many more people who have no opportunity to truly answer these questions in a way that isn't tactical based. And at the same time, it was at the start of 2019, my tutoring platform dried up. They took me off the first page as a construction tutor. So there went the cash flow. And we had a break from work. It was working on that diminishing side and that toxic environment. And I finally had space to breathe. And it was 11 p.m. at night on a Wednesday. And I just had to download the construction coach. And I was up till 5 a.m. that morning registering the domain and the ABN. It was available. And I sat in it for around a month and then I launched it. It started as just a blog. And the more that I put the message out there and was providing that guidance to constructing your career, and that's still a key part of my message. It is your career. Did I realize how much people are being suffocated by conventional pathways and are simply missing out on a chasm of opportunity because of the false pretense that we must maintain the industry status quo? And 4 years later, I'm still with the same message that it is your own career to construct.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you mentioned success from the outside, right? It looked like you had a successful career, but to you on the inside, it was not. So how would you measure a successful career? Or how would you want people to measure whether or not their career is successful?
The universal definition of success is to have the life and lifestyle that you want and to be able to do what it is you want, when you want, with whom you want, and how you want. If your current reality affords you that, then more power to you. But if you aren't able to get to the minimum standard, then what is that metric of success? So that for me is also the baseline. But then over and above is, am I in full expression of myself in my career? Am I living in accordance with my passion, with my purpose, at the same time fulfilling the kind of income and influence that I do want to have in the marketplace as well. But value alignment is key. And I'm hardwired with two values, which is freedom and independence. And everything that I do must be built around that for me to feel fulfilled. Could that have been in a corporate environment? Absolutely not. It's the antithesis of that. So I had to go and create that own version for myself, despite everyone 9 out of 10 people at the time saying this isn't going to work. It's a silly blog, but here I am.
Yeah. So starting a business and going down this path is not easy. What challenges have you come across, and what have you done to overcome them?
You're in building and in business. It's challenge after challenge every day. Like today alone was a roller coaster. You get on some calls, and it's like, why did I do that? And I didn't do a good, didn't have a good conversation then, and then you get another win. But when it comes to the challenges, I'll answer in reverse. If it wasn't for my mentors and to have the people that truly provided that backbone and the strength and to show me what I needed to know, when, all the different aspects that I had to consider when you're coming out of obscurity in the industry, I don't think I would have figuratively made it, because it is far more challenging. And if someone can't show you that there is light at the end of the road and this is what it looks like, then there is a tendency to say, look, it's not for me. So it is my mentors that provided me that strength and that wisdom to continue. And I chose them, they chose me, is that they had the results that I desired. At the same time, I draw immense confidence and conviction and courage from the spiritual side of things. And if it wasn't for exploring and seeking intangible ways to strengthen faith in my own journey and in my own self, then one or two knocks and it throws people out of the game. But the challenges in the thought leadership model of entrepreneurship, it's as soon as you stick your head out of the bucket in industry, it's like, crabs in a bucket, society wants to pull you back in. It happened very quickly for me. Maybe it was the difference of the brand, something they haven't seen before, or they simply didn't like it. Again, none of that being my problem, but very quickly were their keyboard warriors. And it was something that I was set up for and knew that it would come, but it came very quickly. A byproduct of growing really quickly and your interests changing just as fast is you disconnect and disassociate from people that I always thought would quote unquote be there. They would support, but very quickly are you left with one or two people that can understand what's happening in your world, or even want to share your interests for more than 5 minutes. I want to talk about spirituality and marketing and psychology and mentoring and clients and all sorts of new things happening in the world. But my worldview got bigger and bigger, but theirs stayed the same. And that just created that sense of temporary loneliness. It does come with the journey as well. Patience is something that I didn't know how much you needed to have, but it's not just patience unto itself. It's patience and maintaining your level of ambition without a diminishing rate of enthusiasm. The amount of times I've tweaked and you do something and it doesn't work, and I try something again and look, would you look at that? It doesn't work either. It's having more faith than you can even know that you can tap into. And I'll wrap up with the last challenge. Is there was a founder on Twitter and they were talking about, you need relationship equity and you need financial equity in business, but no one really talks about the emotional equity and how much of that do you need to know how to control, allow to flow through you, and also work with in order to get more of the desired results that you're seeking. Because if you're not operating from a very high vibration as a leader, if I'm not an 8 out of 10 every day, I don't deserve to lead. So there's so much that goes behind the scenes in order to be the person that people do see online.
Yeah, absolutely. You've said quite a few powerful things there, things that resonate with me as well. But yeah, faith and mentorship is super powerful because it's so easy to get stuck in your own mind, right? And having that patience, which, like you said, works with faith, is so important, because things never happen when we think they're going to happen. It's going to happen on God's time, right? So it's going to happen whenever it's meant to happen. And it's our job just to show up and be ready, right? And be prepared. And I think a lot of what we go through personally, what we go through in life, is just really preparing us for the next thing, right? Whatever needs to happen. It's giving us the experience that we need in order to overcome the next challenge, right? Or opportunity, however you want to look at it, because they're all opportunities. They're all opportunities for growth whenever you come across this. But having those mentors or people that you can talk to who come from the same or a similar background, can understand where you're coming from, can provide the support, is also super powerful. Where did you find your mentors? Like, are these people that you've come across throughout your career? Are they people that you actively seek, or are they maybe, some mentors are just in books and podcasts, right? Where you listen to them and it's good to just turn them on and get a reminder. Sometimes you just turn on the right podcast or whatever it may be to hear exactly what you need to hear.
There was a podcast, or there is, it was by Chris Harder, and I don't remember the name of the podcast at this point in time, but it was a money mindset podcast. And way back in 2017 is when I first started discovering the world of personal development and money mindset and everything that actually works in the world. And I listened to his podcast for a year. It was 200 plus episodes every day, driving for 2 hours. And I mentioned that because I met my mentor, Ron Malhotra, through divine intervention. And if I hadn't had listened to that podcast on money mindset and the books that were recommended from the podcast, like Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, which was sitting on my shelf, I wouldn't have been ready to accept the opportunity that was presented when I met Ron. I only now know in retrospect how much of a turning point that was in my life. But I was ready because I was preparing off the field for quite some time. And with Ron, it was when I met him, he was looking at someone who had every aspect that everyone said you can't have. And there was this one person saying, it is possible. It is more than possible. And he showed me dreams that I didn't even know that I could have. But I was starting my my concept, the construction coach back then. And I got an invitation to join a LinkedIn seminar after work. And I was immediately intrigued because that's what everyone thinks. Oh, I have a concept, I need to use LinkedIn. And I listened to Ron, and I still remember to date, A, the date, and B, what he said on that evening. And when the opportunity presented to work with him and go down a path unknown and then make one of the most significant investments in myself, I am until the end of time grateful that I said yes, because it was more than a mentorship program. It's a partnership. It's people that you want to do life with. And I don't dare consider what would have happened or where would I have been if I would have said no at the time.
That's great to hear. Right. So, and that investment in ourselves is so important. And there's so many people who are hesitant to invest or buy a coaching program or to attend some weekend event, right? But they'll go drop, $500 on a night out. But $500 on a 3-day event, that's too much, right? It's interesting how our mind works and how all the evil kind of creeps into our lives and holds us back.
Massively. And that could be a podcast unto itself. And over the last maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks, I've made 5 figures worth of decisions in the highest amount of decisions and the greatest value in the shortest amount of time. Those decisions, I made them collectively in less than 10 minutes or even 10 seconds, because I'm not operating out of that paradigm of fear. And you're absolutely right. How easy is it to get a consumer good? Because you can show it off and you immediately get that affirmation from society. But you can't show off a coaching program. Who's going to pat you on the back for that? So that's a podcast topic unto itself. I'll stop myself.
Yeah. but it is interesting as I kind of navigate. It's that instant gratification, right? And to some extent, the pride, the ego comes into play for sure. Uh, Something that I've seen with my son. So he's almost 10 years old now, and he's doing virtual school. And so he plays games, like video games, every once in a while with his friends. We try to limit it. But what I've realized, and I realized that after seeing it in him, it happened to me because I played video games growing up too, is when you play a video game, you like get instant gratification, right? If you want something, you can get it really quick. If you want to make money or points in the game, you can do it in a matter of minutes sometimes, and you get what you want, right? And then when it comes to like real life stuff, you have to put a lot more work into it. You can't get the instant gratification. And he had bought so I'm trying to like lead by example in that sense. Yeah, he actually used his money and he bought a Rubik's Cube because his friends had one, and he started to learn, but then he realized that it's pretty hard and you got to put a lot of work into it. So he kind of lost interest, but I learned it. So now I can solve a Rubik's Cube, and I'm like, I never thought that would be on my list. So I like checked it off my list and said, I can do a 3x3 Rubik's Cube. but I'm trying to do it in hopes that he sees me doing it, and then he'll want to learn, because the thing is, like, we all get rewarded for things that we do in private, right? That's what it comes down to. And we can't be afraid to do that work, because it goes back to like teaching somebody how to fish versus just fishing for them, right? Getting them the fish, right? And that's what I think is, we need to take that initiative to go out there, because there are people who can teach us to do everything, right? And we just need to go out and actively look and find the people that we connect with. So on that note, I'd love to know more about what you're doing and the types of companies that you're working with and how you help them.
Definitely. I guide, inspire, and direct young guns and ambitious professionals to construct their career and also develop a powerhouse mindset and entrepreneurial skill set, because there is more than enough remuneration and progress and recognition to go around in the industry. But you have most people who want to have a one-dimensional profile. And you know what? If that's all that you want to do, and that's giving you 100% of everything across the board, then fine. But there are other people in the industry who do want more, but they don't know what more looks like. But they've tasted something and they can't put their finger exactly on what that is. So from an entry-level perspective, it's really working to instill the principles of constructing your own career. I shouldn't have followed the highest crane in the tallest tower, or no one tells you that titles are not everything. And I thought they were. So there's so much conventional career intelligence that is misleading people, especially as they're stepping into the industry. And they also don't know the rules of the game. If you don't know the rules of the game, how could you possibly win at the game? Most people are playing the game like it's 1965. You're bound to lose. It's irrelevant at this point in time. And then, of course, what is the most powerful aspect that we do possess, and that is mindset. But when it comes to mindset, it's not just about the tactics, and there's so much tactics that go around, but actually getting in there with mentees who dare to go down that path and rewire the program and enable them to speak the language of ambition and achievement and be in full control to the best that we can in this incarnation, in this plane, whatever you want to call it, to achieve what they want. And then people of it, as we're going up in levels as well, it's people who want to position themselves as a go-to leader, because once you're in the professional sphere, around the 5 to 7 year mark, that gleam of corporate wears off and that monotony starts to kick in. But then there's people who can see, look, I do want to climb. This is my ladder. This is where I want to go. But again, they're not taught how to be an entrepreneur. What does adding value mean? What also are the leadership and cultural principles that are required in real time, not this theory that people talk about that doesn't actually work, that doesn't deliver results, and it doesn't extract best performance. And then also in collaboration, I work with businesses on business advisory, and there's books and podcasts and many other things that we get to work on.
Do you see, since you're working with a lot of young professionals, do you see a lot of people that are ambitious, or are you seeing the opposite? I get the sense you talk to a lot of people and you hear a lot of people saying, oh, it seems like the younger generation, they're not working as hard, right? The government's giving them everything, so there's no incentive for them to want to work. And there's a lot of people just kind of giving up, living at home with their parents. And I don't know what it's like there, but you hear a lot of that talk here. And there's an obvious labor shortage. But to be honest, I've been in construction 20 years and there's kind of been a labor shortage the entire time. Maybe it hasn't been as bad as right now, but I don't know. Like what are you seeing in your part of the world? And I guess you're also working with people in the US as well, right? Or in North America.
Speak to people across the world, and this is what I love. It's such a privilege, especially with podcasting. It's what other forum or avenue can we have a focused, no distraction, consolidated conversation? It's fantastic to get to do this. But to answer your question, the ambitious are the 10% of the industry, and those who create the companies and lift the standards and, quote unquote, have it all over a long period of time, they're the 10% of the 10%. So they're the 1% of the industry. Especially over the last few years, I've seen more of this entitled, lax, mediocre, complacent mindset just seep into people's everyday engagements. I'd speak to some professionals just via LinkedIn, and they won't even fathom a call, even just to introduce, because they're at capacity for the next few months. They can't fathom doing anything else than what they already have. Their capacity is so limited, and people's also desire to want to improve. And the labor shortage hasn't helped, because it's hand-me-outs. It's fat checks and big salaries, but the tide's going to go out. You've seen it. It always goes out. And those who came in on, free ticket, they're not going to last. They're going to find themselves scrambling and very exposed. So I've seen the ambitious become more ambitious, because once you taste opportunity, you want more. Some people stop, and, in all fairness, that's where they wanted to get to. But I've seen those who already didn't have a lot of inspiration just go the other way completely. So I think the industry is on a very slippery slope, and the chasm between the top 10% to the lower half is just getting wider and wider.
Is it possible for, say an ambitious person creates a big company, right? It ends up growing. So they kind of end up creating this corporate environment that we've been talking about trying to get out of and do your own thing. Is it possible to create a corporate environment that empowers people?
Absolutely. Is it a utopian version that, it's, look, where you combine more than one person, which is two people, there's clashes in character, and people bring everything with them. They bring all their culture, but the cultural beliefs, everything comes with a person when you hire them. And to have a company that is, everyone is value aligned and on the same page, especially if it's big, it's always going to be hard, but it is definitely possible. It's been done before. And the mere fact that that idea exists in a meta realm, it can exist. It will always come with its issues. There are always going to be problems with someone not liking how something is done. But if if it's the leader has the intention that people can be in full expression of themselves and align themselves with an organization, then there can be that win-win. But at the end of the day, there are people that don't want that. They want to be told what to do. They don't want the responsibility that comes with, with full autonomy or full responsibility. And, it's a cycle. Well, let's create a world full of entrepreneurs. Well, it won't happen, because there are some people that are just allergic to responsibility.
Yeah. And some people don't want that either, right? Some people maybe want some responsibility, but don't want the full responsibility of running an entire team or being responsible for the growth of the team, right? And I think we need those people as well, right? So ideally, you have people that know what motivates them, and then you build the team around that, right? And the vision, as long as they're aligned on the same vision, we can have, and we have similar values. That's what I find works well, right? Like you said, people are all different, right? We all come through different life experiences. So we're going to bring our own baggage to every interaction. So as long as people are involved, there's always going to be problems, but it's always also going to be interesting and fun if we choose to look at it that way. Now,
Definitely.
tell us a little bit about your book, your newest book.
Young Gun is just around a year old, if not more. And I wrote that book out of a place of deep frustration, which is why I also find it to be my most striking book. I always like to write when I'm really angry. But it started when I came back this was when I was working in corporate. I came back and into the head office, and there were people who I knew online and you have a few interactions with, and they were just mute and static. And it wasn't just one day, it was a day after day after day, no engagement with anyone outside of themselves. And it didn't make sense. Where is all this roaring passion? I'm going to change the industry, I'm going to become a leader. And then they don't even say boo. And it's been what, 3 months? What's going to happen over the entirety of their career if this is what's happened in 3 months? It didn't make sense. And then also through a series of questions that once I worked with the young graduates who got into industry, they had a whole other host of questions. What do I do now? What does the boss actually look for? I have an idea. How do I relay that? How do I prove myself? All of these questions that I realized there was no consolidated pathway that told them everything they needed to know, that no one's going to sit down and teach them that this is the reality of the landscape. Plain corporate, it's a great playing field for some people. It suits some, it doesn't suit others. No worries. Everyone out here is playing a game. But
Some people,
you must know.
you say some people like the corporate game, right? Just like people like the political game and so forth.
Exactly. And what's a greater political arena than corporate?
Yeah.
So choose the game, but if you are going to play, why aren't you playing to win at the game? And it is so easy in those corporate environments to lose your sense of self, to become so diminished and meek, because you're surrounded by people who also are diminished and meek and don't have that core. They don't have their sense of self. I was that person. And it happens in very subtle ways. You don't lose yourself overnight. It happens like waves hitting a cliff shore. The erosion is gradual, but it definitely happens. And it'll happen through subtle comments. I remember, I like dressing up, and I would do that in the office. And then you would get a back of the hand comment, oh, you're trying this or you're doing that. So you go from, for me it was heels to flats, then skirts to jeans, then jeans to jumpers. Then you start wearing the corporate branding, and then you go to an event and you look like everyone else. That didn't happen overnight. So young guns need to be on hyper alert as to how they can maintain their own sense of self and have high professional practices, but also know what are the principles of success that they need to win at. And that's how you become a standout success. And where does opportunity go at the end of the day? Those who are standout successes, those who are the ones who are at least focusing in that direction. And the book has since become more of the mission, which is really to fuel their ambition, to protect their ambition, because they're the last remaining line of hopium. One day you'll go do something else, I'll go do something else. And if they're not the ones who are going to be the future leaders at the helm, then I don't want a piece of the industry, really, because there's going to be nothing left to save. It's like, have your mediocrity and all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great to have you out there guiding people and putting out amazing books and content and podcasts like this to help all the young guns out there. What are you most excited about in the future, though?
I want to see young guns win. I love how they get this high of achievement and how they are then able to impact other people in their circle. And we only ever need a minority to turn the tide. And this is what I really love about the career model that I have is, if I want to see something, then I want to experience something, I'll create it. And looking at what I can create and how I can create it, and the collaborations and different types of programs that do come about, and taking people through the mentoring at the core, that is what I love doing. But there'll always be more businesses and more brands and more. I'm a maximalist and I definitely want it all, but I have to also keep up that pace myself, because I can only inspire people to as far as I've gotten. I can't rest on my laurels for what I did XYZ years ago. I have to maintain relevancy, and that always requires me to look at my own vision. What is it that I can do? What can I bring? What value is needed at this point in time? So the high level is I'm always excited by creation.
Well, Elinor, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing. We'll make sure that we get your book, the link from Amazon, and we'll put that in the show notes so everybody can get it there. If people want to get in touch with you, though, where's the best place to do that?
Elinor Moshe on LinkedIn and the Elinor Moshe on Instagram.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Elinor.
Thank you for an invigorating interview, Casey. All the best.
Hey builders, I know it's not easy out there. It is a tough environment right now, and we need more conscious builders now than we ever did previously. So that's why for the month of August, we are giving a 75% discount on everything at the Conscious Builder Academy. For one low price, you'll get access to the entire academy, and you'll be able to do things like master your sales and marketing for high performance homes and renovations. You'll be able to boost your profits. You'll be able to solve conflict like a pro, and you'll be able to improve the management of your clients and your team, and so much more. And on top of that, you'll get access to everything for life. This is no ordinary deal. We've never done this before, and we will never do it again. This is only running until the end of August. So to take advantage of this extraordinary deal, head to theconsciousbuilder.com/summer bundle or click the link in the video description below.